What's up guys, Chris here, Signs of Life, back once again with another video, this time something a little bit different. We're going to do my top 5 tips for creating ambient music. Now, ambient music is a huge genre with so many different subgenres that it's hard to pinpoint what the exact right way to do this is. So I'm just going to give you a generic overview, and hopefully some of these tips will be valuable to you, whether you're a total beginner, someone who's in the game a little bit and you have some experience, or maybe you're someone who's a total professional who's just looking to take themselves and their music to the next level. So before we start, make sure you give this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and check out some of the links down below. All right, so tip number 1, design your own presets. I know that's kind of a shocker, right? I'm someone who's a sound designer who actually sells presets and gives presets out for free. Why am I telling you that you should design your own? Well, when I first started, all I did was take other people's presets and start making music with them. It's not a bad way to go. I see presets like this. It's kind of like tracing. When you're tracing artwork, you're just going over the same lines. Is that a valuable exercise? Absolutely yes. It gets your hand trained to sort of move in the general direction of the artwork that you want to create, and then you can try to do that on your own. What you can then do is begin to reverse engineer those presets by taking each preset apart, maybe removing the effects, maybe just starting with one of the oscillators that they created, and start building from there. Presets are like jump off points. They're like instant inspiration for some sort of idea that you have of some sort of genre that you want to create, whether it's EDM or it's house music or straight techno music or it's ambient music. The preset can be that spark of inspiration that you need. Now, if that spark comes from an absolutely self-generated organic source, sometimes you might even become more inspired. You might say, well, how can I take this saw wave, just one saw wave, and make that into an entire song? Maybe I can challenge myself and just use one oscillator synth the entire time, and maybe I might have some sort of drone at the end of it. Learning the basics of sound design comes down to removing that barrier of how do I create a certain sound, and then how do I take those sounds and create the type of music that I want to create. If you don't learn how to create sounds from scratch, you might fall into other traps like gear acquisition syndrome, or buying other synths, or buying other hardware boxes or effects. I'm just kidding. But really it comes down to learning how to do things from scratch and learning the basis of synthesis, or whether it's guitar playing or it's any type of whatever your art is, whatever your craft is, learn how to do the craft from scratch and then start building from there. Just blew my mind how satisfying it was to start designing my own sounds just from basic oscillators and basic waveforms, and then applying effects and applying filters, applying envelopes, and then really starting to dig in deep into how these sounds are created, and then starting arranging those sounds. And once you have a whole like treasure trove of sounds that you can pull from, you become more versatile as a producer. So designing your presets from scratch, start there. Start with any synthesizer. It doesn't matter. You don't need expensive gear to create good music, and that's something we're going to get into later. Tip number 2, find your sound. But how do you even know what your sound is if you haven't even found out what your sound is yet? The biggest thing that I would say is to listen to other artists who you highly respect, and then try to not emulate, not copy, but try to capture some of the essence of what they're doing and put that into your own music. I do this all the time. I listen to artists like A.E.S. Dana, Echo Season, Martin on Static. I consider them to be the modern masters of the genre. And so when I take their mood, or I take their sort of like inspirational cues, and I listen to it maybe for 20 or 30 seconds, then I dive into my DAW and I say, all right, I'm just gonna do something like that. Or maybe I can make a song like this one. But it's not like I'm, just laying their song out note for note. It's not like that. But what you can do is say, here's the benchmark, here's the high bar, and now how do I take what I'm doing and bring it up to that level? You could start at something as simple as the pad in the song, or the sequence of the song, or maybe even some of the drum samples. You can start crafting your own drum samples around some of those samples, and then start arranging them in a way that sounds good to you. Through this process, you're going to find your sound. It's not like you were just copying an artist directly. You were just capturing some of the magic that those artists have, and you're putting it into your own music. There's almost no way that you're going to directly copy or say this artist sounds like this other person. We can't copy each other. Making music is an invisible art form. We can only take auditory cues from each other and apply that to what we're doing. Each person is unique and each person's music is going to be unique. So therefore, you don't have to worry about, is this going to be too much like this other person? I think the deeper you go into the process, the more you realize that there's really no way for you. The music must come first. So whatever comes out, comes out. You learn to accept that and you move on. So that becomes your sound. That brings me to my next point. Tip number 3, experiment like crazy. Now, ambient music, like I said at the beginning, there are no right or wrong ways to do this. Ambient music can be as complicated as a wall full of modular gear with 300 cables, all to create one patch. Or it can be as simple as going outside and turning on your camera, taking a bunch of leaves and crumpling it up, bringing it back home, putting it in your DAW, throwing a filter, delay, and reverb on it, and calling it a day. That could be ambient music, right? So with no set rules, then it's up to you to sort of break those rules. Now, what's difficult is you might get set into a pattern. I'm only using this synth, or I'm only doing it this way, or I'm going to start every patch the same exact way. One of the things that I like to do is totally change it up. And sometimes when I come into the studio, I want to do things a bit differently. For example, yesterday I didn't have much time in the studio. So I watched a great video by Cameron from Venus Theory on how to sample your hardware synths and create wavetables and import them into synths like Vital or Serum. It was a perfect thing to do. I just started sampling my synthesizer and messing with the oscillator and the mutants, and before you knew it, I had 15 wavetables that I was throwing into Vital and I was making pads. It was beautiful. So it was sort of me going outside of my own comfort zone or my own method of how I usually create things and creating something different, right? So I use hardware boxes, I use effects pedals, I use sometimes different modes of synthesis, whether it's granular or wavetable or it's virtual analog. Whatever it is, if you sort of try to keep on your toes and change things up a little bit, you'll never get bored. That's one thing that I love about ambient is there's so many different ways to go about it that it always interests me. I know there's always higher levels or more things that I could do to experiment. For example, I could sample my guitar and then throw that sample into Omnisphere and then throw it into the granular engine and reverse that and put some reverb on it. I mean, there's just so many different ways that you can go about this that I think through that process, you're going to come out with results that you didn't expect. So the journey is almost never ending. Now, sometimes you might come out with absolute garbage, and to you it's garbage, to someone else it's like, oh, that's really cool. But like I said, you could either make dark ambient or space ambient or just field recordings. Whatever it is, your methodology and behind that could be different every single time. So you could go about it a different way and get something that you might not expect. So through that process, you're going to become unique and you're going to learn to experiment and have fun with it. That's the point. Tip number 4, you don't need expensive gear to make good music. This might come as a surprise. I'm someone who's surrounded by synthesizers and hardware boxes. However, I've learned to create good music using the most basic tools. And I think I'm sort of on the other side of that equation where I bought expensive gear before, but now I'm like, wait a minute, actually, I'm fine with what I've got. And I meet a lot of producers who are sort of on the upward slope of that, and they feel like they need another piece of software, or they need this to do this, or this to do this. We are craftsmen. Ambient musicians are craftsmen. Any type of music creator is a craftsman. And craftsmen need tools. And like I said, you could either have some basic tools and get a job done, or you could have a bunch of specialized tools and get the job done. Either way, the job is what matters, and the final result is going to be what you put into it. I remember there was a time when I felt like I needed really expensive speakers to hear better. No, the fact was I just needed to learn how to mix my music better, and therefore I could hear things better. So it's a matter of sort of getting away from that mindset of like, I need this next piece of gear to reach that next level, or I can take what I already have and then reach that next level using what's in front of me. I think a lot of people mistake high quality with expensive, and what that means is we're living in 2021, at least I'm recording this video in 2021, and there are so many great tools out there that are absolutely free. How could you not see that and say, okay, well, all I need is just some basic stuff. Like I said, it could either be a $10,000 modular rig, or it could be, a simple tape recorder in nature. That's it. So make no excuses and make no mistake that you don't need expensive gear. Gear can help. Gear is this never-ending labyrinth of new sonic possibilities. But really, every sonic outcome can come from just basic sources. We're all just playing with the same frequency scale, so it's a matter of how you play with it and how you get there. That's what matters. Tip number 5, put yourself out there. I know it can be scary, it can be intimidating. Maybe you've already started that process and you're not getting the results or the return that you want to see on your music. It's a process. I'm someone who owns multiple record labels. We started with Synphaera Records, we started Exosphere, we started Material Sound Sets for the sole reason that we wanted to release our own music. We also wanted to promote and support other artists who we love, who we feel deserve the chance to be heard. So we often have artists who come to us and they say, here's my demo, release my music, but they've never released anything before. It's their first album and they're already trying to get released on a record label. It's almost counterintuitive, right? If you don't know the reception of your music, or you don't know how people are going to react to it, how could you even be on that level yet? Well, maybe you are, maybe you're not. But there's no more valuable exercise than to put your music out into the wild and just see how people respond. And even if you've already done that, maybe you need to go back and say, well, maybe you can ask somebody. That's one of my jobs at the label, is to help artists promote their own music or get to the level that they want to be, whether it's making suggestions or it's making simple corrections to their sound and saying, here's what I think you could do, and here's what you need to do to reach the level of Synphaera and Exosphere. So there's a million different ways to do this. You can do it for free. You can put your music on SoundCloud. You can put your music on Spotify, whatever it is. Gain some confidence so you are the ultimate destination and you're the one who's going to be ultimately promoting your own music, especially nowadays. So put yourself out there, see how it goes, and see what you can do to sort of reach that next tier and move up and up. Even if you're a total professional and you're trying to switch and alter your music just a little bit to reach another genre or to get on a different label, you gotta put yourself out there before you can actually get to that place. You just make a couple slight adjustments and you'll be there. Anyway, that's my top 5 tips for creating ambient music. Hopefully that helped you today. If you really liked the video, make sure to give it a like, thumbs up, share it with somebody. And if you'd like more videos like this, let me know in the comments down below, and we'll keep this series going. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.